how I got into bodyguarding was really by accident. I ran a few doors, nightclubs and pubs, a long time ago, yeah. And it was in the good old days when people used to come out in a shirt and a tie to go out instead of raggy jeans and whatever, you know. So. I met this guy who just came out of the service, one of the armed forces, and was setting his own security company up, looking for people to join. He took me on face value that I was interested in a career in bodyguarding. Sent me on several different courses to see if I was any good, and picked it up fairly easily at that stage, which was great. And then it's basically all through networking. So back then, it was far easier to join a group of people than it is now. Now they tend to be more selective. Not to say that I'm hopeless at it, but I was 21 stone at the time, and I was like a large, big, imposing kind of guy, and they were looking for that type of people. They call them the front runners. So you'd have a situation where the celebrity or the very visual, so they pick people like me. When most of the time when I'm working, I've worked in the past, it was a shirt and tie. I had an earpiece. You know, when I was like 20 stone, I had a 53-inch chest and a 34-inch waist, so I was a huge guy. A lot bigger than I am now. I was still not small, but you know, visually when you look at somebody like that coming in, people like pay attention and go, yeah. Well, they're there for a reason. You know, somebody who's looking at you would think, well, I've got to get through him to get to who I want to get to. And thankfully, most of the problems that you have is just with overzealous fans or people who are just come to wherever the person is for out and out to get him, and then they're I wouldn't say they're crazy, but they've got like a mindset where they just don't care, they just want to go. And when they go, you've got to be careful of stopping them, because you're the person that's in between. You're getting paid to be like a brick wall, and you've got to stop them quickly and as quietly as you can. I first started in the industry when I was 21 years old. So now I'm 40, so to give you an idea of how long it's off and on, it's not been a constant thing. There's been times where I've stopped for a couple of years and done other things and went back to it. Over the years I've met people and networked and got to meet other people in the industry, and they've recommended me for jobs because of work with me in the past, or I've got to know some profile clients on a personal basis, and they just ring me direct and say, look, can you be here for this, or can you drive me here? You know, some of the jobs is just basically picking a client up from an airport or another location with a vehicle, and they want driven for the next 2 days to various places and want looked after. And you just like spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week with them if you had to, obviously reflecting the cost of the job. It's, for instance, I had a guy who was a banker in London. He used to come up to Scotland to play golf, and he wasn't under any threat, but he liked to spend money and he liked to look flash. So he wanted me and a couple of other guys to be with him all the time. So people would look at him and go, oh, he must be important, he's got bodyguards looking after him, you know? Yeah. But it was no need for us to be there, and we were just getting money for nothing, but it was like going out and spending a weekend with an old friend, you know? Being a close protection guy, or a direct bodyguard, close protection is one of the same thing. The posh word for it's close protection. It's not glamorous, it's very boring most of the time. From what I say, it's very boring. You could have a job where you have to sit outside a hotel room for 6 hours, doing nothing, and appearing to be alert, appearing to know what you're doing. You know, you do have breaks. If you were a scenario like that, you'd be working in a team. So the team, you would rotate. So some guys will be inside the premises, whether that's an apartment or a hotel room or whatever. Some guys will be sat in there with the client, and some will be outside, some will be downstairs in the lobby, some will be outside in a vehicle, and they just rotate. So most of the times when you perhaps have a job on your own, or there's two of you, it's more interesting because the client normally will, in that situation, be proactive with you and get you involved in their life. So, for instance, if there's two of you working, the client goes out to eat, you're on the next table with the client, so you're eating what he's eating, or eating in the same places as he or she's eating. You're driving the car that they want you to drive, or you're following in the car. So it becomes interesting when it's like that. Skills differ from person to person. Most of the skills that people achieve, you could go on a bodyguard course and call yourself a bodyguard, qualified bodyguard at the end of the course. The skills come with experience. A lot of people have skills prior to applying. Either they've been a previous military experience, or they have police experience, being a former policeman, or they're a martial artist or a boxer, and they have so the skills. Yeah, that's a typical, normal, run-of-the-mill thing. That yes, if for example, there's the guy who owns Chelsea Football Club, went and hired a whole squadron of SES guys to be his permanent bodyguards. If you think a SAS guy will typically get 30 grand a year wages from the government for being in the regiment, and then a businessman like him comes along and offers them 150 grand to leave, you're not going to, you're going to say, yeah, I'm away, guys. They work very good. Most of them work very good as single individuals, but typically they work better when they're a team. That's like most things. So big high-profile guys like him will have a whole team of SES guys, SBS guys, and Russian special forces all working together to look after him. He's a multi-billionaire, so that's not a problem. It's a drop in the ocean to him. I have always worked in, most of my work has been one-on-one, although very few of my jobs has been more than a team of two. That's not through my choice. The choice has been made prior to like ringing up and saying, look, I want you to do this. You'll only be one-on-one, or you'll be part of a team of two. Or, the close protection guys tend to be a team of guys, and they call them close protection officers. You have to have an SIA license with the government for that. A bodyguard's different. A bodyguard is normally one-on-one. Is normally like the Royal Protection Squad that look after the royalty. There's normally one of them that always are next to them. So, for instance, if you were Prince Charles and I would be like sitting next to you like this all the time. I'll be very, very close to you. If anything happened, you've got to put yourself in between. I don't know if you've seen any examples of problems that occur. They always call the closest person to the client the bodyguard, but there can be others around them. They're part of the close protection team. Yeah, and then they can be part of a team, close protection team, where all in all, they have the ultimate responsibility of looking after the subject, the client, whoever that may be. Yeah, the VIPs I work with, typically when I started out, the first person was Catherine Zeta Jones, and then not long after that was Kevin Costner. Since then, recently, I've worked with Matt Damon. I've worked with a couple of the wrestlers, the WWE wrestlers, Batista, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and John Cena. I've worked with a banker, which I can't tell you his name, but he's a banker from the city. The chief executive of BP. I've worked with him twice. The most recent people that I've worked with would be Matt Damon. and Paul Gascoigne, of course. I've worked with him loads of times, and we're now friends. So I now, you know, bless him, he's obviously not a high-profile client anymore, but yeah, he's okay, you know, and I'll tell you some strange stories about him. Well, there was one time Paul rang me up and said he had played shotgun for Newcastle on a particular Saturday, and he said he's going to get some stick. He wanted to go out. He wanted to go out in the night time with his mates, but he was scared to walk around the town in case he got filled in. Right. So he rang me up and said, "Would I mind coming out with him?" So I went out with him. I picked him up and walked around. Me and another guy walked around the bars with him. And at the end of the night, he was dying to go to the loo, and we stood on the top of Grey Street. And instead of going to a pub or a club, we weed in the doorway at the Theatre Royal, which I thought was really unprofessional of him. And then, as he was doing that, with two girls walking past him, and we're like, "Yeah, that's Paul Gascoigne." And he had his woolly out and started chasing him down the street with his woolly out. And I was like, it took me ages. I just had to grab him and put him in the car and say, "Don't," you know. There's a lot of times I had to give him a reality check. I mean, after he came back from the World Cup, we were in a bar called Legends in Newcastle. It was him, his brother, Jimmy, and a few others. And it was just me. Again, there was only two of us working with him. And I was stood away from just watching him, and a fan, like she was overweight, fattish girl, came up with one of his autograph, and I didn't see his brother was standing behind her. You know, the old thing when you're a kid at school, when your mate goes on all fours and you push the guy over. He did that, and Paul pushed the girl over, and I was like, oh, and I apologised to the girl, and I grabbed him and his brother, and I got them out. You know, I was always at loggerheads with them, telling them off for doing stuff, and we fell out for a bit. Just before we went to play for Lazio, and it was sad because, you know, I still believe to this day if I had stuck with him, I may have stopped a lot of his problems, you know, because I disagreed with him drinking and working himself. I was always straight on him when he was doing that, and a lot of the hangers-on who he used to pay for, I chased a lot of them at the beginning. And it's just a shame. I mean, I still say it to this day when I speak to him that if I had to stick with him, he may have still had a few bob in the bank. You know, we'll live and learn. He is his own man. You know, I know the instance you were talking about. It's not true, and that was from. At the time, I was quite friendly with him, and it's not true. Yeah, everybody's difficult to protect when they start going off on a tangent. Like Paul's a classic example. He's a nightmare to protect. You almost have to be like, not abusive to him, but you almost have to just grab him and say, right, you're not doing this, come on, we're going. Others are not as bad as him. I haven't had anybody as bad as him. Most of the time, they understand that they're there, you know, to enjoy themselves. They're not there to upset anybody else. There's people who protect them from getting upset. You know, and normally, touch wood, it runs very, very smoothly. Right. But Paul's probably been a nightmare. Well, he has been a nightmare. Probably my worst nightmare. Yeah, back then he was impossible. You just had to be on him all the time. Well, yeah. Well, he just had a massive ego, you know. Yeah, the high parts of the job is when you get a client who wants to fly around Europe and wants to drive fast cars when they're in different places. It's absolutely incredible when you get the task of planning the trips. So, sometimes you do, and I don't personally do that, but I have a girl who used to organise it for me. For instance, when Matt Damon did the last Bourne movie, The Bourne Ultimatum, he was travelling around Europe, and he wanted accommodation, and everywhere that he was at, he wanted to be in a particular hotel, so you had to organise that. He wanted to drive a particular car, so you had to organise the car. And when you approach the car manufacturers, saying, look, I need X, Y, and Z, they bend over backwards for who he is to help, free of charge, but you have to give something in return, like do like an photograph, personal signed autograph with the car. So they might take a picture of him standing next to a BMW or something, and he's signed it. Oh, I enjoyed the car, thank you very much. Whatever, you know. So you have to organise that. The highs are actually being involved in travelling, so you're on like private jets and you're staying in the best hotels and you're eating the best food. The lows are the hours. You could be with somebody 12 hours. You could be expected in some occasions to sleep when they're asleep, or not, as the case may be. They may expect you just to in the case of, it depends how serious the client is, but if you've got a client that's really in danger, it's 24 hours a day, just rotating, and if you're in a team of 2, that's a 12-hour shift each, you know. Like I said before, it could be either or. You could get a job and become part of a team, and there's always, in those scenarios, there's always a team leader, and you get allocated a job. And as part of the plan, for example, you might be a part of a 6-man team. Your job might be to drive the vehicle. If that was the case, you would drive the vehicle. You would know the route beforehand and what the escape routes were, should there be any problems. You'd know the vehicle, what kind of vehicle you're driving, what its capabilities were, what it couldn't do. And you would know from there. You constantly watch it. You would look at the vehicle. You would examine the vehicle with a double-edged mirror for bombs and anything underneath the vehicle. Again, depending on the threat. If the guy was like a high-profile client in the Middle East, then you'd be scouring you've got devices you can use to check the vehicle for bombs. If the vehicle would be put in a sterile area where nobody else could get to it, and you would, either yourself or you and a couple of other members of the team, would check it thoroughly for bombs and any other devices. When you're satisfied that it was safe and it was fine, you would keep it in the sterile area until you were going to use it, and then nobody's fiddled with it. You'd get in the vehicle, go and pick the client up, and then you do your job. Alright, what normally happens is you get to know the client, who the client is, what the risk is, is it a high risk, low risk, medium, whatever. If you're working as part of the team leader will give you a brief of what you're doing that day or over the next few days. The location at the start. In certain instances, you may be looking at if the VIP is going to a meeting or a presentation where they have to be in a public area or a big room. You would visit the room, have a look around the room, see if there's any obvious points where you need to cover. It's like just planning. And planning can take many titles, but mainly the safety of that guy or that woman is your priority, and you have to make sure from A to B to C to D. The client has been driven from a location, passing various spots. This is not in this country. I'm using this example. It was a high-profile client. It was actually in Rome, this job, and we started off. We planned the route. Did everything that we should do. I was actually driving at the time. It wasn't my job. I was just called in as a driver because one of my hobbies is I used to rally cars as a hobby, so I'm a pretty good driver. So we were driving along, picked the client up, driving along. I was going to the airport. I knew the route. This was before satellite navigation, so the route was planned out. And there was 2 cars following us. We had the car that the client was in and a protective car that was following us. And I noticed that there was somebody following us. And I asked permission to deviate from the route to see if we were being followed. And we were. I didn't 100% know the deviation. I sort of was guessing, if I'm honest, we shouldn't have done. And as I was coming out of one of the turnings, one of the cars that were following us tried to box us in. So it drove in front. So if you imagine the car was there, my car was there, the other car came across the top of the car like that to try and box us in. I just reversed and quickly sped off the other way. Got back onto the same route, and I drove pretty quickly that day. Nobody caught me. Well, they did. I mean, I didn't know. I don't know to this day the people that were following me were local police. Got to know that was something going on for us, I don't know. But I got out of there as quick as I could, and I went back on the course and just drove to the airport. I was thankful I'd be able to get back to the hotel in one piece because I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, that was the worst time that I thought, oh, this is going to go wrong here. Yes, in most countries, apart from England, most European countries, in that instance, I had carried a firearm. The rest of the team carrying various weapons in the four-wheel drive that was following us. But yeah, that time I had a firearm. I've been in the limelight a couple of times, just purely being with the people I've been looking after. I've been, on TV and in newspapers a couple of times. I was actually when Catherine Zeta Jones was here. I was in the newspaper because they thought I was an important thing. I was photographed putting some stuff in the back of the car with her arm around me. But we were just carrying on, and I was just packing the car and ready to go. It was before she met Michael Douglas, long time before. She was with a guy from Blue Peter at the time. She was just splitting up from him actually, and that's why they thought I was the new squeeze. Not that I would have said no. Yeah, she was. Yeah, still is. Yeah. Thankfully, the times I've worked, the most of the time when I was very active in this job, I was single, so I wasn't putting my family life into problems and stuff like that.